The Galactic Administrative Court ruled against Earth on a Tuesday. Case 4471 Omega, filed in the year 2011 by 7 civilizations simultaneously, concluded with a 312-page judgment stripping humanity of custodial rights over neutron star J0771. 400 years of hearings, 11,000 depositions. 6 judges died of old age during proceedings, 3 of species that live 8 centuries. Earth's last legal representative, a woman named Sina Corey, read the ruling on her lunch break. She shrugged. Nobody remembered what the star was for. Sina was an archivist, not a lawyer. Earth's actual legal team had dissolved in 2389 when funding ran out. The Interstellar Bureau of Claims reassigned the case to whoever held the lowest seniority in the Terran Records Office. That was Sina, 26 years old, 2 years out of graduate school. Her specialty was dead filing systems. She'd inherited a case folder thicker than her apartment and a note from her predecessor that read, "Don't bother, let them have it." J0771 sat 14,000 light-years from Earth, in a region of space humanity had no ships capable of reaching. Earth had been granted original custody in the year 1987, before humans even knew the court existed. The filing was done remotely by a species called the Vutheri, who nominated Earth as custodian in a ceremony no human attended. The Vutheri vanished 11 years later. Every record of why they chose Earth vanished with them. The 7 civilizations who contested ownership called themselves the Heptarch. They wanted J0771 for its rotational energy. A neutron star spinning 1,100 times per second could power fleet construction for 1,000,000 years. They presented economic models showing J0771 could sustain 7 economies indefinitely. The court agreed. Earth had no use for the star, no presence near it, no cultural claim. The transfer was unanimous. Sina filed Earth's acknowledgement of loss and went home early. 6 days later, J0771 collapsed. Not gradually, not with the slow decay models predicted. At 03:17 Galactic Standard Time, the neutron star's magnetic field inverted, its rotation tripled in 4 seconds, and the mass crossed the Tolman-Oppenheimer-Volkoff limit without any additional matter. It became a black hole in 11 minutes. The Heptarch's energy harvesting fleet, 42,000 ships positioned in close orbit, loss of signal across every vessel. Simultaneously, Sina's communicator woke her at midnight. It was the bureau chief. His face was the color of old paper. "The star died," he said. "Which star?" she asked. "Your star, the one we just gave away." She sat up slowly. "It's not our star anymore." "That's the problem," he said. "The Heptarch says the collapse was foreseeable. They're claiming we transferred a dying asset. They're invoking Clause 9. Sina didn't know what Clause 9 was. She would learn. Clause 9 of the Galactic Custodial Code. If a custodian transfers a stellar asset within 1 standard cycle of a catastrophic event, and the event was reasonably predictable, the original custodian bears full liability. Damages include reparation for all losses incurred by the receiving parties. 42,000 ships, 7 civilizations' investment infrastructure, 4 centuries of legal costs. The preliminary damage estimate arrived 3 hours later. It was more than Earth's entire GDP for the next 900 years. Sina read the claim in her office, surrounded by filing cabinets older than her grandmother. The Heptarch wasn't asking for payment. They were asking for Earth, full territorial surrender. Planetary administration transferred to a joint council. Humanity would become a managed species, fed, housed, and governed by the 7 civilizations it now owed an unpayable debt. The filing was elegant, almost rehearsed. Sina read it twice and felt something cold settle behind her ribs. "Plan this," she told the bureau chief. He rubbed his eyes. "You can't plan a star collapsing. You can if you know it's going to collapse." She pulled up the timeline. The Heptarch filed their original contest in 2011. The Vutheri granted Earth custody in 1987. The Vutheri, who studied stellar evolution more deeply than any species in recorded history. "The Vutheri knew," she whispered. "They gave us this star because they knew it was dying." The question split in 2 directions. If the Vutheri knew J0771 would collapse, giving Earth custody was deliberate. But was it a warning, or was it something else? Sina dug into the oldest files, pre-digital, stored in physical vaults beneath the bureau. Records from 1987, written by clerks who didn't understand what they were filing. She found the original custodial nomination. It was 3 pages, handwritten in Vutheri script. The last line had never been translated. She called in a translator. The only Vutheri linguist left on Earth was a retired professor named Davy Marin, 81 years old, blind in one eye. He arrived at the bureau carrying a cane and a dictionary he'd compiled himself over 40 years. He looked at the last line for a long time. "It's not a dedication," he said. "It's an apology." The line read, "We are sorry for what this will cost you. There was no one else we trusted." Trusted to do what? The Vutheri were dead. Their homeworld was a radiation-scarred husk. Their archives had been seized by the Heptarch centuries ago, catalogued, and, according to official records, found empty. But Davy shook his head when Sina mentioned this. "The Vutheri didn't use centralized archives," he said. "They hid everything in their language itself. Every technical document was also a poem. You had to read both layers." He opened his dictionary. "Let me see the full custodial filing." It took Davy 9 hours. Sina brought him tea, then soup, then more tea. He worked through the 3-page document line by line, murmuring in a language no living Vutheri could correct him on. Near dawn, he set down his pen. His face was pale. "It's not a custodial document," he said. "It's an instruction manual." "For what?" "For containing the collapse." He slid the translated text across the desk. The Vutheri didn't just know the star would die. They built something inside it. According to Davy's translation, J0771 contained a stabilization lattice, Vutheri engineering, woven into the star's magnetic field lines. It had been keeping the neutron star from collapsing for over 12,000 years. But the lattice needed maintenance. Every 400 years, a specific harmonic frequency had to be transmitted from a custodial station in close orbit. The frequency was encoded in the custodial document. 400 years. The exact duration of the legal contest that had just ended. Sina understood now. The Vutheri gave Earth the star and the instructions. Earth was supposed to maintain the lattice. Instead, the document sat in a vault while 7 civilizations spent 4 centuries arguing over ownership. Nobody transmitted the frequency. Nobody maintained the lattice. And the moment the court ruled against Earth, the moment humanity was legally no longer custodian, the last maintenance window expired. The star had no keeper, so it died, and took 42,000 ships with it. "This changes everything," Sina said. "This proves the collapse was caused by the Heptarch's own legal challenge." The bureau chief stared at her. "Sina, we can't prove this in court. Davy's translation isn't certified. The Vutheri language has no living speakers. The Heptarch will argue its fabrication." "Then we need physical evidence," she said. "The lattice. If it existed, there will be residual structures in the black hole's magnetic topology. That's 14,000 light-years away." "I know. Earth didn't have a fleet. It had 37 ships, most of them cargo haulers retrofitted for modest interstellar travel. The fastest could reach J0771 in 6 years. The court's enforcement deadline was 18 months. But there was another option. The Galactic Transit Corridor, a network of faster-than-light lanes maintained by the Heptarch themselves. Earth had limited access rights. Sina checked the corridor map. There was a lane that passed within 2 light-years of J0771. Travel time, 11 days. The Heptarch could block Earth's corridor access with a single motion. Sina needed to move before they realized what she was doing. She requisitioned the Bureau's only survey vessel, a 40-year-old ship called the Margin Note, crewed by 3 people and designed for orbital document retrieval from defunct stations. Not exactly a research vessel, but it had sensors, and it had a corridor-capable drive. She filed the transit request as routine archival survey. Nobody questioned an archivist doing archival work. Davy insisted on coming. "I'm the only one who can read the lattice signatures," he said. "You're 81, Sina replied. "And you're 26. Between us, we average out to competent." The crew was completed by Jun, the Margin Note's pilot and engineer who had been sleeping in the ship's cargo bay because his apartment lease had expired. He didn't ask where they were going. He asked if there was a meal allowance. There was not. They entered the transit corridor at 14:00 standard. The Heptarch's automated systems logged their entry and flagged nothing. An archivist, a linguist, and a pilot in a survey ship. Unremarkable. 8 hours into transit, Sina received a message from the bureau chief. "The Heptarch has filed for accelerated judgment. They want Earth's territorial surrender within 30 days, not 18 months. She stared at the message. 30 days. The Heptarch was rushing, which meant they were afraid someone might find what she was looking for. On the 9th day, the Margin Note dropped out of the corridor into a graveyard. The wreckage of 42,000 ships formed a slowly expanding debris field around the young black hole. Fragments of Heptarch vessels, each one the size of a city block, tumbled silently through radiation-laced void. The black hole itself was small, almost modest, but its gravity bent the starfield behind it into a perfect ring of distorted light. Beautiful, terrible. Davy pressed his hand against the viewport and said nothing. Jun brought them into a high orbit, well outside the debris field. The ship's designed to scan document storage facilities, not black holes. But magnetic topology was magnetic topology. Cena recalibrated the array while Davy dictated the specific field patterns the Vuthery lattice would have left behind. It's like a fingerprint, he explained. Even after the star collapsed, the lattice's magnetic signature should be embedded in the event horizon's spin. The first scan returned noise. The second scan returned something else entirely. The magnetic field around J0771's black hole wasn't random. It was structured, layered, repeating patterns that no natural collapse would produce. Davy's hands shook as he analyzed the data. "It's the lattice," he said. "Compressed, distorted, but intact in the field geometry. 12,000 years of Vuthery engineering folded into the event horizon." He pointed at a specific frequency band. "And there, that's the maintenance signal gap. 400 years of silence. You can see where the lattice began to fail. They had proof, physical, measurable, mathematically verifiable proof, that the neutron star contained artificial stabilization technology. Technology that required maintenance Earth was never told to perform because the instructions sat untranslated in a vault while the Heptarch's legal challenge prevented anyone from acting as custodian." Cena began compiling the evidence package. Then Jun's voice came from the cockpit, flat and careful. "We have company. 7 ships just exited the corridor. 1 from each Heptarch civilization. They're not hailing us. 7 ships were warships. Not the largest the Heptarch could field, but each one outmassed the margin note by a factor of 3,000. They formed a precise formation, a closing sphere with the margin note at its center. Jun calculated intercept time at current approach speed, 40 minutes. "They'll jam our communications first," he said. "Then they'll claim we entered a restricted debris field without authorization, seize our data as evidence of trespassing." Cena looked at the evidence package, half-compiled. "How long to transmit everything we have? To Earth at this distance, even using the corridor, 6 hours for a compressed burst." They had 40 minutes. Cena closed her eyes. "What about the Galactic Court's public record channel?" Jun blinked. "That's a filing system for legal documents. Can we transmit to it? It's instantaneous. It's a quantum-linked archive, but anything filed there becomes part of the public court record. Permanently, you can't delete it. You can't seal it." "Perfect." Cena said, "File everything." She formatted the sensor data, Davy's translations, the original Vuthery custodial document, and her analysis into a formal counterclaim. Case 4471 Omega. Respondent, Earth. Filing type, emergency evidence submission and counterclaim for damages. She included the magnetic topology scans, the lattice fingerprint, the 400-year maintenance gap, and the Vuthery's apology. 23 minutes until the Heptarch ships arrived. The quantum filing system accepted her submission at the 17-minute mark. It was now part of the permanent galactic legal record. Unseizable, undeletable, public. The Heptarch ship stopped accelerating. Cena watched their formation on the sensor display, 7 vessels hanging motionless in the void, suddenly uncertain. They'd come to seize evidence that no longer needed to be carried. It existed everywhere now in every court terminal across the galaxy. Jun exhaled slowly. "They're hailing us." The message was from the Threnian vessel speaking for the Heptarch. The words were formal, polite, and furious beneath the surface. "You are requested to hold position for inspection." "Inspection of what?" Cena transmitted back. "Our ship contains archival equipment and 3 people. Our evidence is already filed with the court." Silence for 11 minutes, then a different voice, older, calmer, speaking galactic common with the precise diction of someone who had argued before courts for centuries. "MS Corey, I am Prelate Soon of the Oravashi. I was lead counsel for the Heptarch in the original case. I would like to speak with you, privately." Cena looked at Davy. He nodded slowly. Prelate Soon appeared on their screen as a tall, angular figure with skin like polished stone and eyes that held the weary someone who had been brilliant for too long. "You found the lattice," Soon said. "It wasn't a question." "You knew about it," Cena replied. "That wasn't a question either." Soon was quiet for a moment. "The Heptarch has known about the lattice for 300 years. We obtained Vuthery archives after their extinction. We understood what J0771 contained. And you still filed the contest." "The lattice was failing regardless," Soon said. "The Vuthery maintenance protocol required a custodian physically present at the star. Earth never sent anyone. You didn't even know. Because the instructions were written in a dead language inside a document nobody told us mattered," Cena said. "Yes," Soon replied. "That was the Vuthery's miscalculation. They trusted humans to be curious enough to translate it." His voice carried something unexpected, not contempt, but genuine regret. "We filed the contest to ensure we weren't holding the star when it died." The truth was uglier than Cena had imagined. The Heptarch hadn't contested Earth's ownership to gain the star's energy. They'd contested it to lose. 400 years of hearings wasn't bureaucratic inefficiency. It was a controlled countdown. They needed the legal battle to last exactly long enough for the lattice to fail on Earth's watch. The energy fleet, the 42,000 ships, those were real losses, yes, acceptable losses. The cost of making the trap look genuine. The Heptarch had sacrificed their own ships to frame a planet. Why, Sina asked. Why go to this length to trap Earth? Soon's expression shifted, something behind the stone face cracked. Because of what happens next. What happens next? The black hole, Soon said. It's not just a collapsed star. The Vuthery lattice didn't only stabilize the neutron star, it contained something inside it, something the Vuthery imprisoned 12,000 years ago. The collapse freed it. Davy leaned forward. Freed what? Soon looked at them both. We don't know. The Vuthery records just call it the appetite. The appetite? Something the Vuthery had locked inside a neutron star using a magnetic lattice that required constant maintenance. Something so dangerous that an entire civilization had engineered a prison for it, and then given the keys to the youngest, most ignorant species they could find. Not because they trusted humanity, because someone had to hold the keys when the prison eventually failed. And the Vuthery made sure it wouldn't be them. They were already dying. They needed someone who would be alive when the bill came due. The Heptarch's plan was simple. Soon continued. When the appetite emerges, someone must contain it again. The custodian bears that obligation under galactic law. We ensured the custodian would be Earth. Earth can't contain a stellar-scale entity, Sina said. We don't have the technology. No, Soon agreed. You don't. The implication hung in recycled air. Earth would fail, the appetite would spread, and the Heptarch would petition for emergency powers to contain it, gaining legal authority over the affected region, including Earth's solar system. Sina stared at the black hole on her display. Somewhere inside that infinite compression, something was waking up, and 7 civilizations had spent 4 centuries making sure humanity would be standing closest when it opened its eyes. She thought about the Vuthery's apology. We are sorry for what this will cost you. There was no one else we trusted, not to maintain the lattice. The Vuthery knew it would fail eventually. They trusted humanity to do something else, something the Heptarch never considered possible. She pulled up Davy's full translation again. She'd missed it, they'd all missed it. The custodial document wasn't just an instruction manual for maintaining the lattice. It contained a second set of instructions for after the lattice failed. The Vuthery had planned for this. The backup protocol didn't involve force or containment or stellar engineering. It was a frequency, a specific harmonic pattern designed not to cage the appetite but to communicate with it. The Vuthery hadn't imprisoned an enemy. They'd quarantined something that was sick, and the frequency was a treatment. We transmit it? Sina asked. Davy studied the frequency pattern. The margin notes communication array can generate it, but it needs to be aimed directly into the event horizon from close orbit, extremely close. Jun checked the charts. Extremely close meant inside the debris field of 42,000 dead ships, inside the region where tidal forces would stress the margin note's hull beyond tolerance within 90 minutes. 1 transmission, 1 chance, and 7 warships watching. MS Corey Soon said, whatever you're planning, don't. Sina cut the channel. Jun looked at her. Davy looked at her. Neither asked if she was sure. Jun brought the margin note around and aimed its nose at the black hole. The ship accelerated. Behind them, the 7 Heptarch warships began to move, but slowly, uncertain. They hadn't expected this. The debris field swallowed them. Hull fragments the size of buildings tumbled past the viewports. Jun threaded between them with reflexes that justified every meal he'd ever eaten. At optimal range, Sina transmitted the Vuthery frequency directly into the event horizon. The black hole shuddered. Space-time rippled, and from somewhere impossibly deep, something answered. Not with violence, not with hunger. With a sound the ship's sensors rendered as a single sustained note, the harmonic equivalent of a creature drawing its first painless breath in 12,000 years. The appetite didn't emerge, it settled. The black hole's magnetic field reorganized itself into the same lattice patterns the Vuthery had built, but self-sustaining now, healing. The Heptarch warships withdrew to safe distance and went silent. Sina filed her final report to the Galactic Court from the margin note's cramped galley. Counterclaim accepted. Case 4471 Omega dismissed. Earth's territorial sovereignty reaffirmed. She sat back and looked at Davy, who was asleep in his chair with his handmade dictionary open on his chest. The Vuthery had searched the galaxy for someone to trust with a dying creature locked inside a star. They chose the species most likely to ignore the instructions, lose the paperwork, and bungle the custodianship entirely. But who, when everything went wrong and the truth finally surfaced, would fly a 40-year-old survey ship into a black hole to help something in pain? Not because of obligation,